Hi, I'm James McGuire, and on today's eSpeaks, we're talking about the phenomenon of cloud sprawl. We'll talk about what it is and how you can fix it if it happens to your company. To discuss that, I'm joined by a major industry expert. With me is Pete Manca, Senior Vice President and General Manager of Dell Apex. Pete, thanks for joining us today.
James, thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
It's interesting about cloud in that, cloud has been pretty much the promised land for enterprise IT for several years now. And it turns out, though, that cloud isn't perfect. It does have its challenges. I think as companies have rushed to the cloud, there've been, services and workloads are sometimes running in multiple environments. Those deployment profiles can be unwieldy. I mean, how did we get here with cloud sprawl? What's happening as you see it?
Yeah, so, you know, defining sprawl is simple to me, as simple as proliferation of workloads across different clouds, right? And so, how do we get here? I view cloud as an operating model, not a destination. And so that means there can be clouds across, your on-prem solutions can be in colos, can be in edge, can be in public cloud. And customers over the years, as these clouds have grown, they decided they don't want to be locked into a single cloud vendor. And that inherently drives the sprawl. They start putting workloads and applications in different clouds. And then they find out that not all workloads are suited for all clouds. So some workloads are better suited for private on-prem clouds. Some are great in the public cloud. The reality is that most of the enterprise customers out there today will have multiple clouds to support their needs. And all these clouds have different operating models, and that leads to complexity in cloud sprawl. ESG did an interesting survey. They found that 75% of the respondents felt that IT was more complex today than it is 2 years ago. That's not the
Which I
direction we
would I
want
would
to
tend
go.
to agree. Would you personally? I would say that is very much true. Would you agree with that?
I would agree. And what I was going to say is it's not the direction our customers want to go, and it's not the directions we want to lead our customers in either. And so making the environment more complex than it was 2 years ago is the opposite direction.
It almost feels like the word multi-cloud, and obviously multi-cloud feels like it's gotten to be the default deployment. Multi-cloud is synonymous with cloud sprawl. It's another way of saying cloud sprawl.
It is. Multi-cloud by its name means you're in multiple clouds, and without having some kind of unifying capability to manage across these clouds, you're going to end up with complexity. You're going to end up with cloud sprawl, and that's sort of where we are today.
Mhm. All right. So what do you see as a solution to cloud sprawl, and how can the as a service model help? I mean, obviously, software as a service and the as a service model is not new at all. In many ways, it feels like it's grown up in tandem with cloud. But how can we fix cloud sprawl as you see it?
As often is the case in IT, what's old again, or what's old is new again,
Mhm.
right? So if you think back, we had a similar challenge in the 90s when there was multiple server vendors, multiple storage networking vendors popping up, and customers were buying equipment and infrastructure from all these different vendors. And that created complexity in their own data centers. And so how did we solve it back then? There are companies that came into the fold to fill that challenge with things like systems management software that abstracted the various vendors' management capabilities or tools and allowed the customer to manage a heterogeneous environment. And the solution is going to be very similar today. We need a product, a capability that allows the customer to manage their multi-cloud estate in a single pane of glass with a single user experience. That's really what Apex is solving for. You mentioned as a service. That's an enabling capability in my mind. It makes consuming the IT easier. It can lead to operational efficiencies if you're having your infrastructure managed for you. That capability makes it easier to consume cloud. The multi-cloud management capability is going to be necessary to manage this cloud sprawl across multiple environments.
Mhm. You mentioned Dell Apex, and you also mentioned the idea of the single pane of glass. I think that's a really intriguing idea because I think companies are hungry for that because they have so many deployment environments, as you said, their workload is spread across various clouds. But the idea of a single pane of glass has been elusive. I mean, are you telling that has arrived?
Well, it's arriving, right?
Okay.
It's something that Apex aims to solve, and we have solved it in a lot of cases, right? So Apex is providing a single pane of glass for multiple cloud environments today. Whether your cloud's on-prem in a colo, location doesn't matter, public cloud, for example. More importantly, I think, is it's giving an operational consistency to our customers so they can manage all their clouds in a similar fashion. while we're at the beginning of the journey, I'm not going to claim that we solved it for everywhere today. We're making great strides and great inroads in that, and providing that real value to customers to give them that consistent user experience across all their environments.
Well, all right, then let's drill down into Apex. I mean, what does Apex do for customers? Why would they want to choose that?
Well, Apex does multiple things. First of all, it's a cloud platform or cloud control plane that allows you to manage your on-prem, your colo, and your public cloud resources. So it gives you that single pane of glass across all the places that you might have a cloud located. It also allows you to deploy infrastructure consistently across these various locations, and allows you to manage and monitor those as well. So you can look for things that may be inconsistencies that may pop up, or maybe you're looking at running out of resources and having a gas gauge type monitoring capabilities to know that, look, I'm going to run out of resources. I need to add more capability to one of these cloud locations, and I can do that through the console. So again, it's giving you that single view into all your estate or all your assets. But more importantly, I think is given that that real operational consistency, so customers don't have to learn different tools and manage clouds differently.
So as myself as a customer, if I'm using Apex and I've got a deployment on Azure and a deployment in AWS, I'm going to be able to look at one console and say, oh, there's my applications that are in Azure. There's something in AWS that needs some attention. Is it actually really show me all of my deployments in one screen?
It will. I won't say one screen because you may have lots of deployments
Sure,
as
sure.
most enterprises do. But yes, it'll bring that together into a single consistent fashion.
That's pretty interesting. Is there a sense of how it's going? I mean, like when did it launch and how the customers are interacting with it?
Yeah, I mean, we launched Apex a little over a year ago, I think, and it's got great adoption. We're having great customer traction. Like the business is growing rapidly. The more important to me is we're getting terrific input and feedback from our customers as well, and we're taking Apex and we're changing it to make sure that it's hitting the use cases that they want, and really solving for their problems, because that's really what it's all about.
I guess that would be the advantage of a software as a service model that can be continuously updated. So people log in, it's been updated in the background, and the customers don't need to worry about the updating. And it seems like one of the problems with managing different cloud environments is, as you say, they all run somewhat differently. Like Azure doesn't run exactly like AWS, doesn't run exactly like Google Cloud. So I guess the Apex platform has to deal with different modes in the background.
That's right. It's got to understand how to deploy assets or software as a service components in an Azure cloud versus a AWS cloud. It's going to understand how to monitor those and manage those in different environments. That's what the Apex console does, is it abstracts away those differences and those complexities to give you that consistent user experience.
That's really interesting. Well, then let's look to the future of Apex. Where do you see it going? But I mean, more broadly, let's talk about that. But then more broadly, I'd like to get your sense of where you see the future of cloud computing and this as a service model. But let's take a look at Apex first. Is there any sense of where it might be going in the future?
Well, the two are tied very much together, right? So if we think the future of multi-cloud is by design, not by accident, which is sort of what's been happening to date.
Hmm.
So instead of cloud sprawl, you're going to get customers leverage multiple clouds by intent. And the only way they're going to be able to do that is if they have a tool like Apex Cloud Console that allows them to manage the sprawl or manage these multiple clouds in a single consistent fashion. So the future is multi-cloud. It's by design. It's intent-based. And Apex is really going to be the glue that pulls it all together and allows you to put your workloads in the best locations while avoiding all the complexity you get with multi-cloud. I mean, in an ideal world, customers get to choose where the best landing spot is for their workload, their application, without regard for does my IT organization understand how to manage AWS versus Azure versus Google Cloud, for example. And so Apex brings it all together and just gives total flexibility back to the customer.
Is Apex attempting to deal with issues around security and or data analytics, or it's not trying to go there in the first place?
Well, there'll be security up certainly for the assets that we manage. right? So we're not trying to solve security across the entire cloud estate, but for the assets that we manage within the Apex environment, absolutely security is a very important part of that, and it'll certainly be a big component of that. As far as analytics, that'll be part of it as well. There'll be data analytics, there'll be AI ops within the platform, so we can do analysis and we can understand, do predictive analysis or predictive understanding of where errors may occur in the future, that kind of thing.
It's really interesting, and no doubt there's a demand for this. I think companies are really wanting this kind of thing. Pete, you may have said it. Is there anything else you'd like to add about Apex and or the future of cloud?
No, I would just say stay tuned because it's evolving quickly. This hybrid cloud, multi-cloud environment is really it's here today. Even though it's the future, it's really here today.
Mhm.
Things are moving very rapidly. Our customers are telling us loud and clear they want a multi-cloud environment. They want it to be easier to consume and easier to manage. And Apex is going to evolve with that. And stay tuned, and you'll be seeing a lot more stuff coming out of us in the future.
Great. Well, Pete, thanks so much for sharing your expertise today. Appreciate it.
Thanks, James. I appreciate you having me on.